What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video, and welcome to your stimulus check update, stimulus package and infrastructure update, and daily news report for Tuesday, September 21st. We have a lot of stuff that we need to go over because everything is going to start breaking down in the next 48 hours. In the next 2 days, we should have more answers. According to Nancy Pelosi, she says we will have answers in the next 48 hours. We will know where we're at regarding a continuing resolution, regarding a debt ceiling increase, regarding the $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill, and regarding the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill as well. So we have a lot of updates. But first, I want to start off this video by answering a question that somebody asked regarding stimulus checks, because this does play into the entire package and whether we see a debt ceiling increase or not. So, yesterday, I was asked, if we default on our debts as a country, couldn't Congress just pass a fourth stimulus check for $2,000 and forget the rest of the infrastructure bill, since millions will then be suffering from lost wages and benefits? That was a great question. Now, I want to start this video off by answering this question because of pretty much a statement from Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. But here's the problem that we are currently having. And according to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, she says, and I quote, "In a matter of days, millions of Americans could be strapped for cash. We could see indefinite delays in critical payments. Nearly 50 million seniors could stop receiving Social Security checks for a time. Troops could go unpaid. Millions of families who rely on the monthly child tax credit could see delays. America, in short, would default on its obligations." That was a statement from her. Now, I want to just be 100% clear. If we see the government go into a default, if we see the government shut down, the chances of a fourth stimulus check are pretty much zero. They're not going to happen. A fourth stimulus check would only come if the government is doing well, they're funded, right? We see the debt limit increase, but we'd also have to see cases get even worse. We'd have to see the unemployment rate go up, which we will not have a true indication on that until probably a couple weeks away, pretty much until the 1st of October. That's in a week and a half. So we have a little bit of time there. But again, things are coming up. But in the next 48 hours, we should have answers as to where we are going. But here's what's currently, and if you understand what is currently happening, you should understand the path we're going to take to get to finally seeing the government funded, finally seeing a debt limit increase, right? Seeing the $3.5 trillion infrastructure pass, and seeing that $1.2 trillion infrastructure pass as well. Here's what we know. Nancy Pelosi is wanting to vote on a bipartisan continuing resolution. Okay, this is the first one. This is kind of the first option, really. Well, I'll break down the options in a minute. Okay, this would provide disaster relief funds, which Louisiana, Mississippi, they desperately need. California is in need of this. I think Oregon, Washington State had a bunch of fires as well. So New York, New Jersey, a bunch of states have had disasters. So they're looking to get some disaster relief funds. There's also going to be money for Afghan refugees, and she's looking to suspend the debt ceiling. Okay, pretty much suspend the debt ceiling until December of 2022. Yes, an additional year. This is 2022, over a year away. And this is something that we are going to see a lot of pushback from. And this is where it faces some of the pushback. Republicans are not going to vote to suspend the debt ceiling for all the way until December 2022 because, according to them, this gives Democrats the ability to push anything through and not worry about the overall cost, which is true. Democrats also don't want to go and do this alone. And they don't want to do this because, for one, it would require them to do it through a budget reconciliation. It would also put all the responsibility on them. If we were to see any additional inflation, it would all be on Democrats. It would all be on the Biden administration. And that's not what they want, especially going into a midterm. So here are the options. Again, there's pretty much three options. There's probably some middle ground options as well. Here are the three main ones. The first one is a budget reconciliation. Again, Democrats don't want to do this because, number one, it uses their budget reconciliation on this as opposed to the $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill. Now, they could probably tie it all together. The problem is it would make the bill very expensive. The problem, again, would be that Democrats would have to provide a number so that the Senate parliamentarian knows how much this is going to impact the federal budget. And Democrats don't want to do that. They don't want to do that because providing a number as to how high they could go, number one, it could hurt some of their more moderate members because they are pushing for something that is too extravagant, too expensive, that we'd never be able to pay for. Or if Democrats don't go big enough, and then in this next year, they have to try to raise the debt ceiling even higher, well, then their voters are going to be like, well, why didn't we just do this in the beginning? Why are we having to do it twice? And so that's the issue there. And that's one of the reasons why they don't want to do a budget reconciliation. The next one, which is highly unlikely, but it is to change the rules in the Senate. And this is something many progressives have been fighting for. This is something that some Democrats are in support of as well. But here's what we know. If Democrats could revise the filibuster rules, they could pass these bills with just 51 votes. But a few moderates are currently opposing this idea. Even President Biden, he isn't fully in support of this idea either. He does support providing some type of filibuster reform that would change the rules to make it easier on the majority party, not the minority. And that's currently how it is. It's easier for the minority as opposed to the majority. And that's not the way it should be, according to many experts. Now, by changing the filibuster rules, Democrats could easily pass this bill. They could increase the debt ceiling. They could do that. They could pass the $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill. They wouldn't need a budget reconciliation there either. They could pass the immigration reform. They could also pass, and this was a big one in the past bill, in the American Rescue Plan, was can we get a $15 minimum wage included? This could all be done if they just adjust the rules in the Senate. And that is by pretty much editing the filibuster. So we'll see if that happens. That is highly unlikely, but it's still an option. Here's the most likely option right now. The House votes to pass the government funding bill and the debt ceiling increase all in one. Pretty much combine the two bills. Okay, that's something that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are currently going to do. They will be doing that in the House. Okay, then this puts pressure on the Senate GOP to vote in favor of this bill or risk shutting down the government, risk defaulting on our debt that the American people and the voters could hold against them. So the pressure here would simply be to vote to end cloture. Cloture is debate. Okay, they're going to pretty much end debate. And to vote to end cloture pretty much means you have 60 votes, which means you have 10 Republicans that vote for this. There's been a few Republicans that have said they would vote for this. One is the senator out of Louisiana, and he is obviously going to vote for this because he wants to see some disaster relief funds come to his state. So there's not 10 Republican senators that are currently in a state that has seen any disasters really, or that many disasters. So I don't think we're gonna get 10 votes there, but it could happen. But once cloture is ended, then the Senate only needs 51 votes. They only need the simple majority in order to pass the bills. So this method, this actually would, according to experts, would allow Republicans to save face. It would allow them to save face while still getting the job done. Democrats would then be able to go and pass the $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill, okay, with a budget reconciliation. That would be different. But it would mean the budget reconciliation would be pushed off, and they would just work on the government funding bill and the debt ceiling increase. That would be the most important thing as of right now. But here's the problem. This still means that Republicans would have to be okay with giving Democrats a blank check to push through any piece of legislation, any bill they want, pretty much over the next year, however long the debt ceiling is lifted or suspended. So those were the options yesterday. This morning, or actually later last night, but Senate Republican Mitt Romney said that he is an absolute no on raising the debt limit, even including on a cloture vote. So he's already saying no. He's an absolute no. But here's the problem. With each passing day, we are getting closer and closer to a true deadline. these are true deadlines. One is an open air deadline, but it's a true deadline. First, the government funding bill must be passed before October 1st or the government will shut down. We know the debt ceiling increase has to come sometime in early October before the government runs out of money. That's a big one. The $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, that's supposed to pass before September 27th. And if not, AOC and progressives will vote to tank the bill. They've already said that about 2 to 3 weeks ago. If the $1.2 trillion bill is not passed before September 27th, then moderates say they will not vote to pass the $3.5 trillion bill. But again, that debate, that discussion is still ongoing as well because they don't agree on the $3.5 trillion price. So right now there's a bunch of people holding these bills hostage. They're simply holding the bills hostage, trying to get the other party, the other group to bend and break. So it's not looking good as of today, but the good news is there are now options. They have clearly outlined the different options. I gave you the 3 options. Like I said, there's probably some middle ground options, some things that we can modify, but this is turning into it's going to be a major week. The next 3 days. Okay, and the reason why I say 3 days, Nancy Pelosi said the next 48 hours or the next 2 days. Next 2 days would put us into Thursday. We could potentially see a vote happen Thursday, then maybe Friday. We could see them work over the weekend, and they better be working over the weekend. That's one thing I can tell you right now is multiple lawmakers have said they are ready to work over the weekend because they cannot afford to take a day off. They just came from a 4 to 6 week vacation. They do not need a couple days off. They should be well rested. So let's get into some immigration reform though. Here's what we know. According to multiple lawmakers, the reason why they're pushing so much for immigration reform, it is not to get to relieve the border crisis. Yes, it would help out a little bit if there was a system, if they had to go through a process. Okay? But number one, it would help out the border situation a little bit. Number two, it would provide more people into the country, okay, who could then work and pay into the Social Security fund. Here's the problem. Right now, many experts believe that, or it's not believed, it is shown through estimates that the Social Security Administration will run out of funding by 2032. Okay, they will run out of money, which means what you currently get as your benefit, it's going to go to about 72 to 75%. It's going to drop. So here's what they're thinking. They think the plan right now is to get more immigrants to come into the United States, to work, pay into the pot. This right here, they're saying is the only way to truly save Social Security, but Democrats also argue that Republicans keep holding them back. That's what they're saying regarding the immigration reform bill. So what I can tell you is there is a plan to save Social Security, but the plan hangs in the balance. It hangs on so many different things. So it's not great news, but the good news is, hey, they at least have some type of a plan. Now, are we going to see that $200 per month boost show up anytime soon? I highly doubt it. But there's a plan as to how to continue paying for Social Security in 10 years. Which at least that is some good news there. And in news, here's some more good news. Johnson & Johnson has said that the booster for them, if it comes 2 months after the first dose, it would be very effective. It actually increases the protection against breakthrough cases, and they say that it is 94% effective when giving just 2 months after the first dose. So that is very interesting. And I say that's very interesting because according to some reports, the efficacy rate from Pfizer and Moderna, it's a huge gap. Moderna goes from like a 94% efficacy rate within the first 120 days, and after 4 months, it goes to 92%. Well, we got Pfizer, who starts out at about 92% efficacy rate, and then they drop to, I believe, 74%. So it's a big drop. So I think that's very interesting what Johnson & Johnson is saying. Now, we're going to see more data coming out over the next probably couple of weeks regarding this, but that could be big. That could be big if instead of seeing 3 shots, which is 2 doses and 1 booster, those 3 shots from Pfizer and Moderna, we actually only have to get 2, which are actually spaced out months apart. Thank you guys for watching.